what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to talk a little bit about learning disabilities and ADHD, just give you some background information. So, and some of you might know a lot of things about learning disabilities and ADHD, and I am not going to proclaim myself as an expert at all. Someone that tells you that they're an expert on any disability, I would be very suspicious of them. So, but I do have a personal connection with at least a learning disability. I identify with learning disability. I have dyslexia myself. I was diagnosed in high school. Dyslexia a lot of times is hereditary. So my sister, my niece, my dad, my 11-year-old son also is dyslexic. He also has ADHD because sometimes they're comorbid, and that's why we're doing these two together, because a lot of times those two things will come together. So I did give you two handouts. I'm not going to go over them too much, but these are faculty kind of just reference guides about ADHD. Talks about some different things about them, and then also some different accommodations, and then as faculty what you can do to help students. So it's just a reference guide. We always like to have takeaways from all of our lunch and learns. And then also some of you probably picked up some things on universal design. I have some information about reframing how you structure your classes and thinking about universally designing your courses. And for students that have learning disabilities and ADHD, it's really about how you're teaching the curriculum. And some of the student panelists will talk about that a little bit and how faculty can help with those things. So a couple things, I just want to give you some general information. So let's talk about ADHD first. So ADHD, sorry, I'm losing my voice today, which I don't know why. So, oops, sorry, I gotta get to my right notes. So basically a definition of ADHD is a neurological disorder that likely affects activities in parts of the brain that regulate impulse, control, and attention. So maybe when you have heard about ADHD, there's three different types of ADHD. So there is inattentive, impulsive, and then there's combined type. So there can be, someone can have the inattentive and also impulsive at the same time. So, so just be aware of that, that there's those three different types of kind of diagnosis around ADHD. And then also, and I really like on this guide that we gave you, that Kelly found, which was great. And so it really talks about some suggested accommodations on here for faculty. And I'm not going to go over all of those because I'm going to let really the panelists talk about some of those things. But this is a nice reference for you all. And I'm sure that you probably have encountered at least someone in your lifetime that has ADHD or someone in your family. ADHD is the largest population that we serve here on our campus. So they're the largest number of students that are registered with our office that identify with a disability would be ADHD. So we have about 800 students that are registered with us, and we have about almost half that identify with ADHD and maybe another disability too that are comorbid. And then learning disabilities. We'll talk about that just a little bit. And so let me give you a little bit of a definition about learning disabilities, if I can find my notes correctly. So a definition, and this is from the Learning Disability Association of America. So the term learning disability, and so I guess that's where I should start. Learning disability is a large term that refers to it can refer to a specific learning disability. It is an umbrella term that covers a range of neurological-based disorders in learning and various degrees of severities of such disorders. So we look at input, how an individual is inputting information, how they're processing that information, how they're doing that visually and auditorily. So I'm not talking about hearing impairment, but how information is auditorily being inputted. So I can give you an example for myself. So when I read something, when I'm reading something, it will take me a little while because visually I'm not processing it correctly. So if I hear it and I read it at the same time, I'm gonna process that information quicker. And then I can be able to keep up more if I can hear the information and if I visually can see it. So that will help me as a learner. So that's the input part for learning disabilities. Integration, so sequencing, abstract ideas, organizing, that can be difficult for somebody with a learning disability. Memory can be a large part of a learning disability. So it can be working memory. And I'm working on this. I'm going to give you examples because it's really close to myself, obviously. That, like, my son right now is working on 5th grade math. So how many of you have been doing 5th grade math lately? Any of you? Super difficult. Jamie is, because she's tutoring my son right now. And so it's super difficult, 5th grade math is. There's a lot of memorizations of, your times tables and multiplication facts and things like that. And so he has no working memory whatsoever. So math right now is his enemy. And so we're trying to figure out how we can do that because his working memory does not help him be able to be successful in math, and how are we going to get through that with him. So short-term memory, long-term memory, retrieval into the memory, because you might hear students that I study, and I think it's there, and then I get to the test and I have no idea what I even studied for the last 3 days. And I think that sounds funny to instructors, like, how can that happen? But it does. It's really about memory and how that works for a student. And then also outputting expressive language. So learning disability, it could be how students express language and how they're doing those things. I think I have that issue sometimes. I have to grasp for words, and you might notice that as some of you that have come to presentation. Now you're going to notice it because I'm pointing it out. So I might struggle with finding a word, but I also practice those things so I know what I want to say and have a script, and I practice those things. And we've talked about that before, right, Kelly? Mm-hmm. So. And Kelly also, me and her both identify with a learning disability. So, and then also fine motor. So any kind of, or motor skills. So fine motor, gross motor, it might be some issues with writing. There may be some, like, you might have students that you're like, oh my gosh, what are they even writing? This looks like a different language. It doesn't look like English. And to them, that's how.
I have atrocious handwriting.
Right. And it's not that Kelly isn't practicing or trying. It's just that processing point for her doesn't work very well. So, and then she has to find a different accommodation to be able to give you information as an instructor. So, so you might hear these terms: dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia. Those are all large terms, basically broad terms for cognitive processing disorders. So all of those things. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and not to dyslexics or to individuals that have dyscalculia or that have those kind of labels are going to be the same. They're all going to have different kind of ways that they're processing information. So even when I work with a student, my experience is not going to be the same as, say, Kelly's or as either any of these 3 students. So it's really very individual for each student. So, all right, so any questions? No? And we are going to have some more time for questions. So any quick questions about any of that right now? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch a short documentary. It's actually 30 minutes, but we're not watching all of it. We're only going to watch probably about 15 minutes of it. So I'm going to skip around a little bit because I want to have you see the parts about ADHD and about dyslexia. The name of this is Headstrong Nation. It's Inside the Hidden World of Dyslexia and ADHD. This is on YouTube, so you can watch the full version. It's about 35 minutes if you'd like to do that in your own time. The part that we're going to skip, just so you know, is a part about an older gentleman that didn't have a lot of education. I don't think he had any education as being younger because it resonates with me because this is what happened to my dad. My dad is 90, and this gentleman probably is that age now because this is a little bit older. And when he was growing up, this gentleman, they didn't really said, well, you don't know how to read, so you can't continue to go to school, we can't teach you. So he went into the military, and he did some other things, and he actually sued a company because they wouldn't let him be a heavy equipment driver because he couldn't take the test, and they wouldn't give him an accommodation of a reader. But after he sued them and they gave him the accommodation of the reader, he passed it fine. So, and then he was able to learn at least some of the skills that he needed to know to be able to know the heavy equipment and what things. He memorized all those things, so he didn't need to, the language didn't really mean much to him. He just needed to know how to use those things. So we're going to skip over that part, so I just gave you a little synopsis, so if you're interested in seeing that, you can. So. We're gonna transition real fast. And again, this name of this is Headstrong Nation, inside the hidden world of dyslexia and ADHD. So it's on YouTube, so if you wanna watch the entire one, you could do that. So come on up, guys.
And really quick, I just wanted to say something. So in the documentary, they said learning differences, and I know Jane and I identify with learning disability, but that is just a colloquialism that, you know, different people will identify with different words, same as hearing impairment and hard of hearing. Different people are going to identify with different words, but it's referring to a similar thing, the same thing.
Is that okay? Is that in your guys' eye line? Okay.
It's trying to turn it off. It's just trying to
So I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves. They will just give us a little bit of background about your disability. So first of all, introduce yourself. Tell us what major you are, what year you are here. Tell us a little bit what you identify with as your disability. And then maybe give us something that has been a challenge here as a college student and something that has been something that you've been successful in. So. And I know that you guys can figure it out. You guys are both first-year students, so. So, all right, Jamie, we'll let you go first.
Hi, well, my name's Jamie. I'm a junior here at Western. I'm studying special education. I was diagnosed with learning disabilities in elementary school, with like reading, writing, spelling. So my biggest accomplishment and my also most difficult thing is almost pretty much the same. When I was in high school and like all through grade school, I was actually really ashamed of my disability. But then once I actually came and had my first initial meeting with Jane, I really like opened up and my self-confidence really grew with it. So overcoming just that kind of thing.
I'm Mitchell Jacobs. I'm a freshman. My major is computer engineering, and I have 2 minors, one in math and one in computer science. I was just recently diagnosed halfway through this semester, so I'm a fairly recently diagnosed. My biggest accomplishment and challenge is similar to hers. It's actually, I would have to say, mathematics. I struggle getting things in the right order a lot, and it's challenging, but at the same time, I love to do it, and I'm good at it. If I get in the right order, not, hey.
My name's Brianna. I'm a first year. I'm majoring in criminal justice, and I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in 5th grade, and a learning disability during middle school. And I think it's like the same for all of us. Like, I felt really ashamed. I was treated differently because of my disabilities, and so I hid them. And when I came here, I'm like, oh, well, I have all of these at my expense, I guess. So I'm like, it helped me realize that it's okay to ask for help if it will get me like a better education.
Great, thanks.
You guys are good. You're like concise.
So I'm going to open the floor up to you all. So questions that you have for any of the student panelists or for myself or for Kelly, we can try to answer those for you. So
Feel free. We're here for that reason.
I have one, and it might be something you would probably answer more, because I'm in the advising office, and sometimes students are coming in and they're seeing things that makes me think something's going on, that maybe there's some organizational issues or having difficulty attending. And when you kind of broach that subject, they have not indicated there's any type of learning disability that they're aware of or anything. So my question is, if you're suspecting that though, and the student is really struggling, I think there's a way that you can have them self-report that to you, and possibly get some type of accommodations in place in the classroom, correct?
yeah, so I'm going to have full disclosure. Me and Lisa have talked a little bit about this before because she is in the advising office and she's right, a lot of times, and maybe you all can chime in on this too, like when you're doing advising or if you're talking to your advisor, because you should be doing that, correct? Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And you're going to disclose some things to them and they want to be able to help you, but what I think we're trying to allude to is that there's this piece of documentation. You need to have documentation to be registered with our office, right? Because we want to make sure that it's legitimate and that that's what's helping the student. But there was an amendment, 2013. I'm like last year, but last year I was saying that last year, so it was 2013 to the ADA. So it was the ADA, the amendment in 2013. And in that amendment, it did not say anything about documentation for disability for work or school. It says that individuals need to self-report that they need some type of accommodation due to a disability. So let's say we have a student that comes in, and I would say that I'm professional. Remember, I said I'm not an expert, but I'll say I'm a professional in this field around disabilities. So I'm a professional. I work with students frequently, know this kind of different signs and symptoms of like what are some academic barriers or some things that could hinder a student. So let's say Lisa was working with a student and they're saying, you know, every time I take a test in chemistry or history and there's 50 questions, I get 15 of them done. Every time. And I'm doing the best, and then I just got to fill everything in. That happens every time, and I know I'm getting those wrong. And they disclose that information and say, you know, I really feel like I need more time on a test. But the professor won't accommodate that because I really need to be registered with Disability Services for Students, but I don't know if I have a disability, and I first of all didn't have any means in high school, and maybe that was something too that came up with Mitchell, like newly diagnosed, like how do you know this stuff is going on? Like you had to search that stuff out, right?
Yeah, I actually would never have noticed if it wasn't for Kelly pointing it out to me. I grew up, my dad, my grandpa, you know, his family had it, and I grew up, hey, that's normal, that's fine. I didn't have such a hard struggle in high school. It wasn't such a challenge. But when I got into college, it was a new ballpark. Sitting in class trying to take a test with 200 other people, you know, I got 30 people turning a page. Huh? What? I'm looking and I forgot what I just read. I don't know if I answered that right, and then I have to think, well, did I do this? And I have to go back, look at my Scantron, and I redo it, and it just keeps repeating. And the same in class.
All right. And so can you tell me, tell me how you got diagnosed then.
How I got diagnosed, I went to Syndicuse and I met with a doctor, and they have an assessment. You take this written assessment, and then you meet with the doctor later on. The doctor looks at your assessment, asks you some questions, and depending on what she thinks and your answers, she'll send you on to a psychologist. And the psychologist will have you do a set of questions, and he'll have you do these tests, and he'll start talking to you. And if he or she believes you have a disability, like I had ADHD, he said it was obviously clear. So I was like, oh, okay. But then they send you to a psychiatrist if you want to be medicated. And it's nerve-wracking the first time. You're not sure, you know, I don't know if... It's about the environment, though. It really helps.
Yeah. And so we have that resource here on campus, right? These students that go to Western, which is great, they have this resource. We have Syndicuse that can do those types of things. And so since Mitchell was able to do that, and he has insurance, so some students might not be able to go and do that because they don't have insurance. So let's say we have a student that can't do that like Mitchell. So are we going to deny them and put this academic barrier in front of them because they don't have the means to do those things? And so that ADA is saying self-report. So I'm saying Lisa's a professional, I'm a professional, you all as instructors are professional, and you're seeing this from a student. And so what a lot of institutions are doing is that I can get a letter from Lisa saying the student is reporting this is what we want to do. A letter from an instructor saying the student, you know, is really bright, I've talked with them, they know the materials, but when they get to the test, I really don't know what's going on. Maybe they just need some more time. And then at that point, because the student's going through that whole process, because think about that. Would you go through that whole process and make yourself vulnerable to people you don't really know if you didn't feel like this was really going on for you? At least I wouldn't. I wouldn't do those things.
I wouldn't.
And so I think we have to legitimize those things for those students. Not that we're going to give them a math substitution or we're going to give them a lot of different kind of more concrete things, but more time seems pretty reasonable for those types of students. And so then that's something that we could, and as an advisor, as an instructor, you can instruct them, go over to DSS, have a conversation, talk about like what's going on in classes. If a student wants to come over to me, let's say, I'm going to use Bree as an example, let's say she just comes in and says, school's hard, I just don't like it. I mean, that's not telling me anything. That's not self-disclosing what's going on or what we can help them. I'm not going to be able, I really need good information from students. I would say I might have a student like that. Bree didn't do that, by the way. But I would have maybe one student like that a semester that would come in, and I would tell them, I'm like, well, you really got to think about this, do some soul searching, and figure out what's going on. Why is school hard? What's going on? And come back and talk to me again. But if I have a student that's coming in disclosing all of these things that, I don't have enough time, when I read the information, I'm not processing, like I don't understand what's on the paper, words are jumping around for me, and maybe they didn't have access to get testing. I'm going to suggest for them to go get some testing, but they might not have that resource. But we're not going to deny them some accommodations if we have that self-report and report from an advisor, report from an instructor. We'll kind of do some work with that. So, does that make sense to you all? So.
And just on the tail end of that, in a similar situation, also just sending the student over to have an appointment puts them in contact with other students. Like, so I work at the front desk at the office as well, and I disclose almost every day. So like I have no barriers about that. I'm just like, so if a student like, is concerned about this or comes to me and asks about that, then I'm fully capable and fully willing to, not capable, it's not the word I wanted to say, willing to talk about my own experiences and what's helped me. And I know Jamie is in a similar situation with that. So if we have tools to help us, and it's like in the documentary they said, having a community and talking about it can help. And so we might have some tools and tricks that are not official accommodations that they might be able to do on their own, and that can be helpful as well.
Because really students, and you guys can contest this, and especially me as someone that identifies with dyslexia for a really long time, there's a journey that you kind of go through about learning that you're not dumb, you're not stupid. That's not what's going on. You need that ramp. You need that. It's not about trying harder. It's about having that accommodation or that ramp to be able to help you be successful. So.
Yeah, and it's like, it is like a struggle, like she said, like it is a journey, because like I was diagnosed at such a young age. I was led to believe that like I needed help, not like I'm gonna have to stay home every day help, but like I felt really stupid afterwards because I was diagnosed in 5th grade when I was 9. And I was doing well in school before then, but then that whole entire year I just got D's. My mom was like, something's going on, and we got tested, and I was treated differently after I was diagnosed. I can't remember when, I just remember being treated differently, especially from my peers, and it just developed throughout middle school and high school. It just got like worse. Like I was automatically put in classes that I didn't need help in. But they said, oh, well, you have ADHD, you have a disability, you have to take this class. You don't have a choice. And when my mom found out, she got mad. She's like, excuse me, my daughter knows how to ask for help. And really, I didn't. But I didn't need the class. I knew when to ask for help, but like it was hard to ask for help. Because when you're a middle schooler, you're stubborn enough. You're hyper enough. Add that on to ADHD and having no control over what you say half the time, it's hard. So it really is like trying to balance yourself out. And once you get that and you get the help like DSS gives you, it's a lot helpful. Like you feel like you can succeed better.
Mm-hmm. You kind of figure that it's not you, it's not about you, it's the environment.
Yeah.
I think we do that all the time too. Like we need to reframe it. It's, we put all this, oh, it's the student's fault or the person that has a disability.
So this question is for the students who were diagnosed earlier. The question is basically, how did you transition to Western in terms of dealing with the DSS office? You have to self-advocate much more. You don't have mom coming to to do these things for you. I mean, what kind of process did you go through, both in terms of paperwork and in terms of your own self-awareness? And that's for any of the students who had this
Yeah,
before.
I know.
I'm not trying to ignore you, but it's.
Rachel, you can't talk.
In high school, my experience in high school was a little bit different. My special ed teacher was actually really into like us self-advocating in high school, even though I was really terrified to do it. I don't really remember how I got in contact with DSS. I just kind of remember going one day with my mom.
It was orientation. You identified at orientation,
Did I?
and we sent you a letter.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I don't remember.
But
But
your mom, I remember your mom. Your mom called me.
she really? Okay. But just like that transition. Okay, I just totally lost my train of thought.
The transition between high school and college, and with like having parents help and
Oh, okay.
yourself.
So yeah, I'll just track my other things. No, but my mom, when I was younger, she was very like, you know, you're not different. Like, yeah, you have to learn it a different way, but you're not different compared to other students. So just, I've learned from a young age that I have to do things differently. So like the transition to college wasn't as big of a shock as I thought it could have been. But then like my confidence grew when I was technology, and so that really helped.
Not to steamroll over Bree, but I can offer a slightly different perspective. I did community college for a year before I transferred out to Western, and I've learned something about myself is I don't handle big transitions well. It's just something that I need, once I'm in something, I'm really good at it, and I can do it really well, but like the first few times I do something, it's just real choppy. But, so when I went to community college, my mom went with me, and, you know, I went with my IEP group or whatever, and took the tests to figure out what classes I needed or whatever. But then when I came here, because I didn't use my accommodation letters at the community college, I just didn't need them there. And then I came here, I was like, well, I don't need them. Big mistake. So I went a semester without getting help, and I failed one class and got a D in another class. And then, so at the end of that semester, I terrifiedly walked into the DSS office with a folder that my mom had faxed me of my accommodations IEP, or my, my documentation, and Jane walked up to the desk and was like, I'm like, I need an appointment. And so, like, I did everything on my own from that. I mean, my mom was able to get me the information, but everything else aside of that, once I've gotten to Western, has been on my own. I also work there now, so it's really easy to get stuff.
Transitioning from high school to college was, I don't want to say hard, but it wasn't easy. Because, you know, like I said, I'm pretty dependent on my mom, have been my whole life. Because, you know, it's been just a struggle between both of us. But she kind of just, like, not kicked me out. It's like a bird. You gotta learn how to fly. I learned how to fly faster. You know, she's like, you gotta do this on your own. Like, I'll be there, but you gotta do it. So I actually got into contact with DSS the summer before I came to Western. I worked there, and I'm like, oh, I got this. You know, I felt like I could do this on my own, like grow out of the disability, like everyone else around you says, because like that's what they say. Oh, you'll grow out of it. You don't. You learn to adapt. And I thought I could do that, and I was doing pretty well. I did well my first semester, but this semester has been really I've been struggling a lot, and I made the big step to just talk to the people around me, and they're like, oh, well, we can help you with this. Like, it's not extra help, it's leveling the playing field. And I'm like, no one's ever said that to me before. I thought I had to get special attention to do as well as everyone else. And really, it was just leveling the playing field. And that was, like, easy, I guess. Like, it's difficult. But once you get, like, on the road, it's a lot easier to just get used to it.
I have something that's on a tangent. Since I was diagnosed halfway through the semester, it's actually kind of interesting in how, so I had to approach my professors halfway through the semester, and I was kind of worried about how they would take it. And I didn't contact all my professors. One of my classes online, so I wasn't too worried about it. But one professor in particular I was worried about, because it is one of my harder courses, and I was worried, well, maybe he just, now using it because he's going to fail the class or something. And well, compared to how I was being treated before and after is no different. And that was what I was afraid of. And it was a big relief to me that my professor, the faculty member, was so relaxed about it. And yeah, no problem, we can do this. That was the biggest difference to me. And from having not to represent myself in any way for my accommodations, that was a really good start for me. And that does, can't think of the word. You get the meaning.
Encouraging.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's nerve-wracking. Approaching, even emailing your professor is really nerve-wracking. Because, like, you can get used to having the disability, but when you have to tell people you have it, that's something completely different. So it takes a lot of, like, courage, I guess, to approach someone and say, hey, I need help. Because, like, you can be comfortable with your disability, you can learn to study or do what you need to do, but if you need help to help you do what you need to do, that's difficult. Like, I approached one of my professors, and it was so hard. I'm like, I need help. And I thought he was going to say no, like, what are you doing? And he didn't, and I'm like, awesome, I have help.
There is a perspective about that as a student. Approaching a professor, especially like in the first week, because we're encouraged, we're supposed to approach you like in the first 2 weeks, I think is the official timeline, but I know everyone I talk to tries to do it either before class or the first class, or set up a separate appointment, but I mean, calling yourself out that early is kind of, I mean, it's horrifying, just to be brutally honest, because you're going in cold unless you've had this professor before, because they could be the nicest person in the world, or they could be having a bad day, or they could just think it's the stupidest, I mean, like the documentary said, they could just think it's worthless, and you really don't know what you're gonna get. And I mean, I've had a person ask me what my test score, or a professor ask me what my test scores were, questioning my disability. I've also had professors be great, and to go back to the asking what my test scores are, that's completely inappropriate, by the way. So just the courage, like, I just want to call out that when a student does that, it takes a lot of courage to go, and because they don't have to disclose, they just have to come and say, you know, now you'll be getting an email from Disability Services for Students with the list of my accommodations, and you know, these are the accommodations, can we talk about these things? But it takes a lot of courage, and I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and one thing, I tell students, just so you know, students don't have to disclose exactly what their disability legally. They do not have to tell you what their disability is, but they do need to tell you what their academic accommodations are and to talk about it. But I do encourage students, I say, if you feel like it's a safe place, like this is a safe instructor, they're using good language around disability, they're not up there saying, yeah, I put the statement in here because I had to, because my chair told me I had to, like, probably not the safe place, and hopefully I'm not hearing that from profs, so. But if they feel it's safe, I don't think it's a bad idea to disclose, because instructors sometimes might have a personal connection or might understand how to work with you better if you tell them exactly what's going on or what your writing style is and why is this happening, those kinds of things. But that really is up to the student. They have to feel comfortable with that, so.
Do you find, as you continue, you have to do this every term with every instructor? What are your techniques to kind of get the tougher skin, to be persistent in that? Because, you know, even if 9 out of 10 times you get a great response, it's that one response that's going to scream at you always, the one you're going to hear the loudest. The others are going to be whispering. So in the next term, what gives you the strength to say, I'm going to do this again? I mean, where do you get that tough skin, that persistence?
Jamie, can you talk a little bit? I know that you had an experience that you weren't so happy with.
Yeah, my freshman year, my second semester, I had a class, and I went to the professor because what he would do was he literally had a piece of paper that was just typed up notes. He'd put on the overhead as he was talking, as he was writing on the whiteboard, so I never had enough time to try to write what he had written down, write what he's on the board, write what he's saying. So I went to him with the accommodation saying, hey, like, you know, I talked to you at the beginning of the semester, but I really need a copy of your lecture notes. And he flat out told me no. He just like, no, that'll put you ahead of the other kids, will make me favorite you in the classroom. That's exactly the reaction I had to. And of course, as a freshman, it's like, oh, okay, welcome to DS. Hey, Jane, this just happened to me. What do I do? And that's why I really like the support. 'Cause like DSS, especially like with Jane, she just kind of sent him an email. It's like, hey, you have to do this. And then the next day I walked in
I
and
didn't
he
necessarily
handed
say
me
you
all my
have
notes.
to do this.
It was
We diplomatically talk about it.
and I walked into class the next day, and he just gave me all my notes. And I was like, okay, thanks. But just knowing that you have that support has always like kind of been the back of my like, hey, if I have a problem, I know who I can go to talk to them. And that's only out of all the classes I've taken as my third year, I've only had that one professor who's been a bad experience. Everyone else has been very accommodating. I've actually gone to professors at the end of the semester, like, and I've been personally thanked them for being so accommodating. So.
And just to add one more thing on that, like, you have, like, if I don't have my accommodations, I'm not gonna pass a class. So, I do it because I have to sometimes. I get nervous and I stutter sometimes, but I do it, that's what helps my skin get thick, for me.
The very first time I was doing it, I was literally mumbling to myself, it's okay, you have backup, it's okay, you have backup, it's okay, you have backup. Yeah, that's how I toughened my skin.
I don't know. It's nerve-wracking talking about it. Like, I'm just like adrenaline kind of thing right now. I guess like because like we started at like a young age. I've just like gradually built up thick skin because of all. My first semester here, I had one professor, and this is before I had a chance to apply with DSS and like get like the accommodations I needed. And I'm like, I told them like I'm gonna be applying. You'll get the email once I'm in, but could I? Because like I had an important exam the next week or so, and I'm like, really need these notes. Like I'm struggling, and they flat out told me nope, not gonna happen. I don't give out notes. I don't post them online. Sorry, you're gonna have to do this on your own. I asked them for their office hours, and they said that they weren't gonna be there all week, so they couldn't even meet with me privately. Yeah. I mean, I passed, so I mean, but still, like that's like you automatically prepare yourself for denial, even if it's like a good positive professor. You just kind of think of the negative and you try not to. And I guess it's kind of what hardens your skin. You're used to people saying no, even if most of the time you get a yes. That kind of makes sense.
I'm like paper thin here. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I hope this goes well. If it doesn't, I'll figure it out from there.
You've got backup.
Yeah, I got backup.
I got you.
So does a 504 plan or an IEP still follow the student from high school into university?
No, so 504 is law that stating that they have a disability that was under K through 12, and that will follow, the 504 will follow them to high school, but it's just stating what accommodations they had, that they qualified. IEP, individual education plan, is K through 12. That does not follow them to college, because there may be some things that in high school, K through 12, it's about success. Like, they're guaranteeing success, and I still don't get that, because how can you guarantee that someone's going to be successful? Where here in higher education, we're guaranteed that we're going to give you the tools, like we're giving you access to these tools. So there's that change there, and so sometimes parents don't understand that, and so the IEP may have some things like, we're going to provide tutoring for you, we're going to provide an aid, which the university won't, they wouldn't provide an aid for a student. We have tutoring, but not directly through our office. We help with tutoring like supplemental, like maybe through the department, like math has fantastic tutoring, or right, maybe some of you guys will not tell me if it's not fantastic, but, or, through our academic success areas, those kinds of things. So there's some changes, and some students, and also too, like, this is the biggest one I see the most that's on IEPs, different forms of tests. So let's say there's multiple choice tests, they'll change that for the student and give them less questions to do multiple choice, and that here it can fundamentally alter the nature of the course for an instructor, and I haven't had one instructor that hasn't agreed to that accommodation, and I can't really push that forward, because if accommodation fundamentally alters the nature of a course, then it's not reasonable. So that doesn't, they do different things K through 12 for those things,
So
so.
you're saying the 504 that's filled with accommodations,
Mhm.
I've always been told it's not as strong as an IEP. So I've been always thinking, oh, you know, he's got a 504 but not an IEP. He couldn't get an IEP because he wasn't ever struggling. He was always above grade level, so he
Right.
can't get an IEP, but he needs accommodations.
Right, and that's the same thing with my son too, like, he can't get an IEP because we're doing so much tutoring and so much work, and I know what he needs, I know his learning style, because they're similar to mine, and we've been doing it since he was really young, but, what I've always been told K through 12, like, the IEP is goals and objectives, and it's that success piece, so, it's just that success piece that so,
So-
again, I'm not an expert for K through 12, because I don't
So
know
the
that.
504 does carry through?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And the IEP is helpful, we'll look at that, but I really, because but again, we're trying to not be so like, oh, you have to have all of this stuff, let's talk about it, what were you getting before, what was helpful, what worked for you, so, yeah.
In my experience with those were was to get your kid out of the regular test stream so that they wouldn't have to show up on the MEP scores and things, and that was the only function that those things served.
Well, and that's what they tell me too, I'm like, my kid, he shouldn't even take the MEP, he's gonna fail this whole thing, you can't take a senior
But they
test.
don't want your child pulling down their
I know,
preliminary
you
score.
got it right there, sir.
I just say, yeah, 'cause my youngest has a 504 for ADHD too, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she doesn't have an IEP. We've chosen not to do that because we've worked with, otherwise her teachers have been wonderful at working with it.
Yeah.
But she definitely has ADHD and she needs, you know,
Yeah.
special assistance that she's receiving.
And I think it's,
So-
do you all agree with me? Oh, did you have a question? No? Did you have an answer? Oh, that, I think it's really important, just if you all are parents that are thinking about that, you need to look at the institution, like on the video, how they said they're giving them accommodations, they were doing that, but another institution has more. So for example, they were talking about Kurzweil. That is a program that will read for individuals that have cognitive processing issues, and it's a fantastic program. Do we offer that for students here? No, we don't. No, I take that back. If you go over to the College of Health and Human Services, they have 4 computers that have Kurzweil on it. So, but I don't, I'll tell students that, but do they want to track all the way over there? No, that's maybe not. I know U of M just got a grant and they put Kurzweil on every computer at their university. So, you know what I mean? As a parent, you might think, okay, that's a better resource. Or sometimes private institutions don't have to do accommodations because they're not state funded. So that's so like if you're in a wheelchair, like you go to K, they don't have to be accessible over there. They want to try to be, but they don't necessarily have to be because they're not getting state dollars. So, yeah. But I know, and there's some gray lines with that. But as I feel like, don't you feel like if we weren't offering the services, because I know you all love me, right? But if I wasn't here, right, that you might choose a different institution, right? I don't know.
The 504 and IPE, I went through, I'm sorry, you know what I mean. I went all the way through high school without being noticed, and I was never underachieving. I graduated, I think, 10th in my class with a 3.8. If you look at me now, it's a lot different story. But the point is, just because they may not have it doesn't mean they don't need it, because the high school could be a whole different situation. And for me, it was. My high school, the only class I was awake for was calculus. Nothing else challenged me enough. I didn't need help with anything, but when I got to college, where you have to do this, it's hard. You're gonna have to learn this. I didn't have those skills to do it. I didn't have the tools. These tools I have now help me tremendously, and I can already tell I'm doing better.
Yeah, and like, for like the parents, I'm assuming you all have parents. I'm just gonna assume. But like, another thing that's really important, like especially in high school, like kind of before you transition into college or even think about college, like freshman or sophomore year, and you do have a disability, is make sure you like, make it very clear that they have a choice and what kind of accommodations they choose to use. Because even though they might not make the right choice at like, say you're a sophomore and you're failing, and you're a parent, you're like, you gotta get that extra time. They're like, I got this, I'm fine. And then they need to prove it to themselves that they need help. Because if you just push it on them, they're going to avoid it and they're not gonna try as hard.
They're gonna go their first semester at Western and fail the classes.
Yeah. Or they're not even gonna want to go to college because then they're gonna get the like. It's like I'm just speaking because that's what my brother's going. My little brother's going through. He's like he doesn't try, but my parents are getting him tutors. They're getting him extra help to get him through his classes, and he is pushing them away so far. He's failing all his classes, and he's just juvenile basically. But like you have to make sure that they choose it even if you know it's the wrong choice at the time, because they need to learn that they're in control of their learning style, and if they see that what they're doing isn't right, then maybe they'll be like, okay, maybe I do need to listen to mom or dad. Like they need to be the ones to make that choice. Like
I just want to be real conscious of our time, so one last question. We're about 4 minutes over, but
Okay, real quick on this one. One of the biggest accommodations I find that I'm giving to my students is extra time. You know, they'll come to your office, they'll take it over there. So you get extra time on all these exams, and because of the issues you go through, sometimes things take you a lot longer. We saw it on the video and things like that. In the end, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So how do you guys deal with that time crunch? I mean, do you take a lightened load, or do you just forego other things? And how do you create that balance in life? Because you don't want it to be just working 24 hours a day. Right?
Although we all do that laugh.
Oh.
You make it work.
Yeah.
You have to really pick what's more important to you. Like for me, kind of like going to the whole college thing, I knew I needed to take more time to do homework. I knew it took me twice as long as someone else to do a homework assignment. So when I was picking colleges, I considered going to state because of an extracurricular activity they had there. But then I thought to myself, if I'm doing that, how am I going to have time for my studies? So then school should come before those kind of things. And then you have to really consider, you should be involved on campus, but if you're involved, you're going to be in classes all day long. Right after class, you're going to have a club meeting. Right after that, you're going to have work. So you have to really find what's the most important thing to you and then adjust that way.
I'm not the best time manager, but for me, I found working in study groups helps me learn better because I can get other people's just perspectives on how to do something correctly. And well, the extra time may help on the test. And I can say on my last exam, if I didn't have time and a half, I would have only got through three of the 7 questions. It just would not have worked. But anyways. It is about making a choice. Would I rather study this material and do better on my next exam, or would I rather play a game? It's up to me what I do. I make the choice I'd rather study. So it is a time crunch, but it's one I'd happily make because I'm here for that reason.
I think too, and I will also tell students if I look at like test scores or we're talking about those things, I might tell them, if you have to take these courses that are so intensive, you need to maybe take 9 credits, and then we'll work with financial aid to make sure that will work out for them. Sometimes we do letters that due to their disability, they need to take this load right now because they're not going to be able to handle more than that. It just depends on. It comes down to advising too, like what kind of combination of classes are taken together. Don't you think that's super important for you all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Combination?
Yeah, because they helped me pair sociology with general psychology. Oh my god, that helped. Because it was kind of the same content and the same exams. And like while I went to one class one day, I kind of was studying for my other class. And it helped. I ended up passing my sociology with an A, and psychology, I did well. It counted towards my minor, and it was really helpful to have a combination help me out. And that's kind of what I'm doing now, pairing off like criminal justice class with a psychology class, because it's kind of the same content, but they have their different views, kind of. It's really helpful, like, because it helps with time management too. Like, I figured that if I take 2 classes a day, and then 1 class on Friday, I'll have time for work and studying, and I'll also have time, because like I have to take like an hour of downtime. Otherwise, because I comorbidity.
Your comorbidity, yeah.
Thank
good
you.
job.
With my ADHD, it's kind of paired off with anxiety. So if I don't take a certain amount of time a day to calm down and do something that I want to do, I will not excel in anything that I put my effort towards. And like professors are all like, you guys say like, you have to study, work hard, and pass this course. That's great, really. I'm doing that to the best of my ability. But also, if you study all the time, you're not going to do well. If you study for a certain amount of time, you will do well. Like that's what I've had to learn with my time management.
Well, I want to be very conscious of your time, and so let's thank the panelists. Thank you guys so much. And thank you all for being here, too. So, please make sure that you get some more food if you want to do that. If you didn't get any handouts, please grab some.
If you need them in a digital format, I can email them to you.
Oh, Kelly.
Oh yes,
We
we
forget-
have a
Evaluations, if you can fill it out super fast, we can
yeah.
sorry
So,
about
or
that.
if you wanna take it with you and
Drop it off at the office, too, or send it campus mail, that's fine, too. But,
Huh? I like this too. It felt good.
yeah, thank you all for coming, and